Once upon a time, in a quiet town wrapped in morning fog, a tiny baby boy was born. He had no mother, no father, and no family at all, so everyone called him Oliver Twist, the orphan boy. Oliver grew up with many other children who were orphans too. No mum or dad to care for them. They all wore plain clothes and ate bowls of soup so small that the spoon could barely swim in it. In the big, echoing workhouse, the orphans were supposed to be cared for by the beadle, Mr. Bumble, and the matron, Mrs. Mann. Mr. Bumble was very important. At least he thought so. He wore a huge hat, carried a tall stick, and puffed out his chest like a rooster trying to impress absolutely no one. Mrs. Mann was in charge of feeding and watching the little children, but she was always very, very busy doing, well, whatever she felt like. One morning, Mr. Bumble marched into the workhouse yard, trying to look grand. "Good morning, dear children. Your kindly beadle has arrived." He took one important-looking step forward. Squelch! His foot sank so deep in the mud, he wobbled like a balancing chicken. His hat flew off and landed on a passing pig. The kids burst into giggles. Mrs. Mann came running out, waving her hands. "Oh dear, Mr. Bumble, your hat!" One evening, Oliver stared at his empty bowl, swallowed hard, and tiptoed up to the huge cook, the man who guarded the soup like it was treasure. "Please, may I have some more?" The cook froze. "More?" roared, his eyes popping like buttons about to burst off a coat, and before Oliver could say another word, he grabbed him and marched him away. Oliver was sent to live with Mr. Sowerberry, the undertaker, a man who sold coffins and other gloomy things that made the house feel like it was always whispering boo. Mr. Sowerberry was so thin, he looked like he might blow away if someone sneezed too near him. His wife, Mrs. Sowerberry, always wore a face like she had smelled an old cabbage hiding somewhere and couldn't find it. Despite the gloomy air, Oliver worked hard. He carried long boards, swept dusty corners, and tried his best not to sneeze, because one sneeze could set off a whole cloud of coffin dust. One afternoon, a boy who worked there named Noah Claypole walked past Oliver, wrinkled his nose, and sang out, "Orphan boy! Orphan boy!" Oliver's cheeks puffed up like an offended little squirrel. "Stop calling me that!" he snapped. Just then, Mrs. Sowerberry marched into the room. Oliver tried to explain what happened, but he stepped backward, right into a bucket. Splash! Water flew everywhere, including straight onto the cat, who leapt into the air and screamed, and of course, they all blamed Oliver. Oliver knew he couldn't stay another day in the Sowerberrys' gloomy house. So, before the sun was fully awake, he quietly slipped out the door and began to run away. He walked for hours, then for a whole day, and then for another. His stomach grumbled like a cross old bear. His legs wobbled as if they were made of jelly. At one point, feeling very lost, Oliver spotted a cow peacefully munching grass. Trying to be polite, he asked, "Excuse me, would you happen to know if London is this way?" The cow looked at him, blinked, and mooed loudly right in his face. Oliver sighed. "I'll take that as a maybe." So, after many long, lonely miles, Oliver had finally reached the enormous, bustling, clattering city of London. Just as Oliver was wondering where to go next, a cheerful boy suddenly popped out from behind a cart, almost like a jack-in-the-box springing to life. Oliver couldn't help giggling. The boy looked like a cheerful magician who kept losing his own tricks. "Hello, I'm the Artful Dodger," he announced proudly. Dodger squinted at him and said, "You look tired and hungry, and, well, everything. Come along with me." Oliver, having no other place to go, followed him. Dodger led him up into a warm attic room packed with noisy, laughing boys. Some were juggling apples with surprising skill. Oliver thought they were silly and very funny. He tried to juggle as well, but an apple fell into a boy's head. An old man with twinkly, fox-like eyes shuffled into the room. He wore a long coat with too many pockets and smiled in a way that was both kind and curious. "I'm Fagin," he said warmly. He set a plate of food in front of Oliver and pointed him toward the fire. Oliver held the warm plate, felt the heat on his frozen fingers, and for the first time in days, he felt safe for the moment. The very next morning, Oliver woke to the sound of giggles and clattering footsteps. The boys were gathered around Fagin, who was proudly holding up a pile of shiny watches and colourful handkerchiefs like a magician showing off his treasures. Oliver blinked in surprise. "Did you buy all of those?" he asked politely. The Artful Dodger snorted so loudly he almost hiccuped. "Buy them? Not exactly." Oliver tilted his head. He still didn't understand. Fagin chuckled and wiggled his fingers mysteriously. "Now, my dears, watch closely." He began teaching the boys how to slip things into their pockets without anyone noticing. The boys treated it like a game, laughing, racing, trying to be the quickest. Oliver watched in confusion. It seemed like the strangest game he had ever seen. Then Dodger tried to demonstrate with great flair and accidentally hooked his sleeve on the corner of a chair. He spun around like a confused duck until the chair finally let go. Everybody burst into giggles. Dodger pointed accusingly at the chair. "That chair grabbed me first," he huffed. Later that day, Dodger decided to show Oliver a little something in the busy streets of London. He leaned close and whispered, "Watch this." Dodger tiptoed up behind a gentleman who was buying some fruit from a lady. A very dangerous skill. Dodger had slipped his hand right into the man's pocket and pulled out a bright handkerchief. Oliver squeaked, "Dodger, that's not a game." The gentleman spun around. He saw only Oliver, small, worried, and standing very, very still. He frowned and asked, "Young man, did you take my handkerchief?" Oliver shook his head, scared. "I believe you, my boy," he said kindly. Oliver's shoulders relaxed, just a tiny bit. When Mr. Brownlow learned Oliver was an orphan, he gently took the boy home to care for him. Oliver was given a warm bath, and he splashed so happily that half the water leapt out of the tub and soaked the floor. Then he ate a big, delicious meal, so big that Oliver wondered if Mr. Brownlow had meant it for 3 boys instead of 1. At last, wrapped up in a soft blanket that felt like a hug, he fell fast asleep. The next morning, Oliver opened his eyes, stretched like a sleepy kitten, and whispered, "This feels like a real home." Mr. Brownlow, standing in the doorway with a gentle smile, replied, "And you are very welcome here." Meanwhile, back in London, things were not cheerful at all. Fagin paced around his messy room, wringing his hands. His eyebrows wiggled like 2 nervous caterpillars. "If Oliver tells that gentleman about us," he muttered, "we'll all be in trouble." Sitting in the shadows was Bill Sikes, a man who always looked like he'd just lost a fight with a rain cloud, drenched, grumpy and rumbling. He cracked his knuckles and growled, "We need that boy back."
We need the boy back.
Even his dog Bullseye stared up at him with wide eyes as if to say, "Please don't make me come with you." A few days later, Oliver stepped outside Mr. Brownlow's house to enjoy the sunshine. He didn't get to enjoy it for long. Suddenly, a huge rough figure appeared. Oliver gasped and looked up, straight into Sykes's stormy face. "Come on, boy," Sykes growled, sounding like thunder with a bad mood. Oliver pulled back, tears springing to his eyes. "Let me go. Mr. Brownlow is kind." But Sykes didn't listen. He yanked Oliver away, and poor Oliver stumbled after him, wishing more than anything that he could run back to the warm house he had just started to call home. Among Fagin's crowd was a young woman named Nancy. She was kind-hearted, even though her life was tangled up with Fagin and the grumpy storm cloud man, Bill Sykes. One afternoon, Nancy spotted Oliver sitting in a corner, his face buried in his hands, tears plopping down like tiny raindrops. She knelt beside him and gently lifted his chin. "Don't worry, sweet Oliver," she whispered softly. "I'm going to help you."
We'll figure this out together.
Even if Mr. Sykes gets angry?" he asked, voice trembling. That night, while everyone else was busy arguing, eating, or tripping over Bullseye the dog, Nancy slipped quietly out the door. Her feet tapped across the cobblestones as she hurried through London's twisting streets. She ran until she found Mr. Brownlow. Breathless, she told him everything. About Fagin, about Sykes, and about the frightened little boy who needed saving. Nancy's courage that night changed Oliver's whole life. Forever. As soon as Mr. Brownlow heard the truth from Nancy, he didn't waste a single second. He rushed through the busy streets, coat flapping behind him like a superhero cape.
"Can I help you, sir? I came for the boy."
When Oliver saw him, his whole face lit up. "I'm here, sir." Oliver sobbed into his coat. Please take me home." Mr. Brownlow rested a warm, steady hand on the boy's shoulder and said gently, "Oliver, we are going home." Oliver's eyes filled with happy tears. And then, from all the excitement and crying, Oliver accidentally let out the biggest, squeakiest sneeze. Achoo! Right onto Mr. Brownlow's sleeve. For a moment, Oliver froze, horrified. But Mr. Brownlow simply laughed, patting his shoulder again. "Bless you, my boy," he chuckled. "Bless you." From that day on, Oliver stayed with Mr. Brownlow forever. No more cold rooms. No more tiny bowls of soup. No more gloomy grown-ups shouting more. Oliver never forgot Nancy's bravery, never forgot the frightening days he survived, and never forgot how much courage had been hiding inside his little heart, and he certainly never forgot his manners. He always said please and thank you. Oliver Twist, once the tiny orphan who dared to ask for more soup, finally had everything he had ever wished for. A real family, a real home, and a life filled with love, laughter, and happiness.